All right, let's talk about breach. Recently, I was given the blueprint to try and min-max a breach using a strategy, and these were the results. I came out with a profit of 65 divine. I ran 72 maps in total, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit. I'm showing the results first because I have not done a ton of breach this league, so I do not know how this compares to other breach strategies, to be honest. If you're running a strategy where you can't make this in 72 maps, then I would continue watching. If you're already running a strategy that's better than this, then you can go ahead and back out now. But I'll share this one. The strategy can absolutely be improved. I think I could have easily gotten another 5, 10, or 15 divines out of this. But I tried to keep the strategy ethical because the way I would likely do this if I was doing it back to back to back is I would leapfrog my towers, meaning I would go in, clear out these towers, then I would do these inner maps. I would leave these outer maps until I finish these inner maps, and then I would use pathing maps to go through to these towers here, and then I would go in and do these inner maps, and I would continue this cycle all the way through. So I would never do any maps that were past the towers until it came to pathing, and I wouldn't do these inner maps until I hit the next section of towers. Now, obviously, if you're doing the strategy like this, you're going to hit areas that are bad. I tried to simulate this bad situation occurring by going into a bad tower range here. As you can see, I have 53% quantity. It goes as low as like 35%. Just to give you quick context on the maps I ran, so I basically ran this section here and then this whole section here, and this entire section, so roughly half of the maps I ran were bad because I just didn't have the quantity. This one's actually good, but it didn't have a breach on it. But you can see 55%, 37%, 55. These are very, very bad maps. When I was up in this range with the 80% quantity running the triple prefix maps, I was basically getting a divine orb almost every map. It was at least a tier 1 currency every map, but generally a divine orb. But as soon as I got down into this section, the strategy just completely died. So you could get so much more value out of this if you're choosing better tower ranges. But again, to be ethical, we're not always going to get the perfect tower ranges. So this is what I went with, but it ended up being kind of one of the worst tower ranges I've used so far. So, it is what it is. The 72 maps that I ran included the tower setup process. So it started, somewhere on one of these maps here, and I piggybacked off of these two towers here to gain like 30% quantity, and then when I got here it was like 15% quantity. But I was running double prefix maps on the way to the towers. Once I got to the tower, I immediately put in the breach tablet. Then I go to the next tower, and then I use pathing maps to get to these towers where I put in the tablets. And then once these towers are filled out, then I go in with my triple prefix maps, and that's where you start seeing like basically a tier 1 currency, if not a couple tier 1 currencies per map. I will also say that I was running a very tight loot filter. I took off any simulacrum splinters that weren't 3 or more. So basically, I only got simulacrum splinters from the boss itself. I also took off single stacks of breach splinters, so I could only see the ones that came out of the little hands things that you pop open. I couldn't see the single stacks. This will obviously reduce your ROI per map run, but I think overall it increases the currency you make per hour if you care about that. And in general, it just saves my wrists. I don't want to pick up all those splinters, and I don't think I suffered too badly for doing that. The strategy is nearly self-sustainable. The first time when I did this section here, I was able to completely sustain it. The second time when I did the 72 map test here, I had to go out and buy 2 breach tablets at the end, which cost me about 2 divine. But through a combination of some annuls, we are able to sustain the tablets just about. The tablets I am using are, I don't really like 15%. I'll take it if I have to, but I prefer 17% plus. We're going to use chance for an additional breach or chance for 3 additional breaches. I do not know why these aren't far more valuable than they are. Unfortunately, they're not valuable, so it's hard to bulk buy them, which is why I was hoping that I could self-sustain these, which I was able to both times, with the exception of 2 tablets on the second time that I went out and bought. The way we do this is basically you're going to get a ton of these percent for additional breach without quantity on them, and then you just annul them off. I did this at the end of the last stream that I did, so you can see it in real time if you're not sure what I mean. But basically, if it has quantity without percent breach, I sell it. That's how I end up getting 22 0.05 from breach tablets. I had a ton of quantity ones that I didn't want to use, and then the ones that have percent breach and quantity I keep. And if it just has percent breach, then I try to annul off the other modifier and augment on the quantity. And I was able to do that with 8 tablets. The first time I was able to do it with 10, and that's how we end up sustaining these. The reason why these are so valuable, in my opinion, is because, if you stack 5 tablets together, you're going to get something like 40, 50% increased chance for an additional breach, maybe a little bit lower, depending on the tablets you find. But that obviously gets scaled up by your increased precursor effect. And then specifically why I really like them and why I'm surprised they're not more valuable is because when your chance to double effective precursor tablet happens, then that's going to double the chance that you're going to get an additional breach or 3 breaches on your map. And it's also going to double your quantity. So those big, juicy, huge quantity maps now should almost always have an additional breach on them or more as well, because this is still taking effect as well. So I did very few maps that only had 1 breach on them. Like, these tablets should be so much more valuable than they are, but it is what it is. People haven't recognized the strength of them, I guess. But now that you've seen this, trust me, if you're running strong maps, you should be running strong tablets as well. And then the maps, I am running tiers 13 through 15. I did not notice a currency drop in the tier 13s and 14s. It may have been a small percent, but I didn't notice anything. Again, roughly 2/3 of my maps were tier 13 and 14, and I still came out just fine. The entire thing was live streamed. This one here is just me kind of playing around with the strategy, figuring things out, and these two are me actually running it. I do not think it would take you this much time. This is my first time streaming. I was talking to viewers, I was showing them things. I was also just kind of experimenting. I think this could be done probably start to finish, including map rolling and setup and all that. I could probably get it done in 6 hours, maybe 7. Um, but I am on a temporalis build. It really just comes down to, however fast you can run 72 maps. The setup process itself takes about 20 minutes. Um, and then, yeah, the rest of the time you're just blasting. But we need to be able to run these tier 13s in order to be able to sustain the maps needed to run this. Credit where credit is due. I recently did this video here. It was sort of a sporadic video. It was sort of a simpleton take on the gold modifier being good. I'm not suggesting you go watch it, but the reason I'm showing you this is because I have pinned a comment here. This man saw the potential of what I was talking about and then went out and did the real test. And he gave me basically his blueprint on what he's doing. And if you expand this, I ask him a couple of follow-up questions and he goes into more detail. So if you want to see the source material and you want to figure out something for yourself, this is where it all came from. I have made some small changes to it, maybe for better, maybe for worse. I'm kind of thinking it's for worse. What I had done is he gave me values on what I should be doing, and I had lowered these a little bit, which I'll talk about later. But either way, this is where it all comes from. Mr. Modikin is the originator of this and where I got the idea to test this from. So that's where this comes from. But the key takeaway is that you need enough rarity for the gold to scale up. So I was finding a lot of divines per map. Basically, if I was running a triple prefix map, I was almost guaranteed a T1 currency. A T1 currency being either an annul or a divine. You get a 50% chance for one to drop. As you can see, 23 and 22. That means a tier 1 currency drop. The game then rolls 50-50 on whether it's going to be an annul or a divine. I believe, I'm pretty certain about that, but I am not positive. A lot of this video is going to be sort of speculative. I do believe gold is converting up into currency, and I do believe that you're looking at getting at least one T1 per map when running on a triple prefix. But when using gold, you need enough rarity between your character and the map's rarity in order for the gold to then scale up and be worth it as a beneficial mod over something like one mod or rares or rarity. So we'll talk about like the finer details of how it's working. This isn't necessarily important for you to know, but it also kind of is, because I think the strategy can be improved upon, and if you understand it, you might be able to improve it better yourself. But if you don't care about all this nitty gritty and you're sort of like and I don't give a fuck about this, that's okay. Eventually, we're going to get around to just a copy and paste strategy that you can run. But we're gonna talk about what's going on here first. So this is somewhat in the ballpark of how I think it's working. I'm sure these numbers aren't perfect. I'm sure that this exact scenario that I'm going to describe isn't perfect, but I think it's pretty close to what's going on here. All right, so we have you. You kill a monster. The monster then drops a pile of gold. Then the gold goes into a calculation where the player's increased item rarity is multiplied, not added, multiplied by the Waystone's increased item rarity. Zizarin did an interview with Jonathan where it was confirmed that it's multiplicative and not additive. The result of that will be something like a 1 in 100 die. I don't know what it actually is, but we'll use this as an example. Now, the result of whatever these two numbers are is going to produce a different die. If you have higher item rarity and Waystone item rarity combined, then you're going to get something like this, where rolls 1 through 35 will leave the gold as a gold stack, and anything 36 to 100 will then turn it into currency. If you have lower rarity, then the opposite will take effect, where rolls 65 to 100 will turn into currency, and rolls 1 to 64 will leave it as gold. I believe that if it passes the check for currency, then it goes into another roll. Or maybe they're all done together. But basically, what's going to happen is once it says, okay, it's now currency, then it goes into a roll tier. I don't know what the tiers are, but we'll say 5 through tier 1. This being, divine. And, tier 0 being a mirror of Kalandra, and tier 5 being like an augment. I don't know what the actual values for the tiers are, but it's going to go into another roll, and let's say it hits tier 1, then it's going to roll between divine and a null and give you a 50% chance to get either a divine or a null, as we see by this test and also by other tests that I've done, that these are about a 50-50 after the game decides you want a tier 1. I'd asked my chat if what the chaos to divine orb ratio was, meaning how many chaos orbs are dropping before you get a divine, and one of the chatters said that it was 40 chaos orbs per one divine. Now, I couldn't find any information on that anywhere I looked, but I can say through running high rarity and high gold and whatever other various mods that I ran, 323 chaos divided by 23 divine, I was getting one divine per 14 chaos orbs. And I imagine that's because I was scaling up my gold and rarity so high. So that leads me to believe that the item rarity and Waystone rarity multiplied off each other is also increasing the tier of currency, not just it actually converting into currency, although I don't know that for sure. I couldn't find any other information on what the actual chaos to divine orb ratio is. But the reason why gold would be good is because if your monster is dropping another stack of gold by increasing the amount of gold drop, then that stack of gold is also sent into this, as well as the ones that would have dropped if you didn't have additional gold. All of these now being able to convert into currency, therefore giving you more currency. Now the trick is deciding when getting gold is better than just increasing the item rarity and increasing the gold that's already going to drop. Is this additional stack better than just getting item rarity on your map, or just increasing the rare monsters or quantity or whatever? That's a bit of a balancing act. I still don't really know the answers, but I'll show you the values I ran, and you can turn this into your own little thing. Now, I'm still not certain that all currency starts as gold as a base. I really do believe it is for a couple of reasons. One, Modifier found that was the case. I personally, anecdotally, found that was the case. And then also Slippery Jim went out in the beginning of the league and did a massive test. We'll listen to him here real quick.
The way that we know that rarity works, the way that Jonathan said it works, is sometimes if you have more rarity, gold can get converted into other things, which is what we're seeing here with less gold stacks showing up and more currency stacks showing up. And then with rarity, the currency stacks that are getting converted from our rarity have a chance to be turned into higher tier rarity, higher tier currency, which...
Okay, so now we need to turn all of this into a simplistic strategy that we all can run. Now, he gave me his blueprint. He gave me an order from best to worst. And it looks like gold starts being pretty valuable around his 4th, 5th tier. And it goes down a little bit here, meaning that quantity, rarity, and rares is your best. Quantity, rarity, quantity, rares, and then the rares having one additional modifier being your second best. And then gold starts to be better than some of the other modifiers as we go down. What I found and where I think I made a mistake is he gave me some values here. So when he's regexing these searches out, he went with 80% gold, 40% rares, 80% rarity, and 15% quantity. He was also claiming on getting one raw divine per map, which at first I absolutely doubted. Now, after having run this strategy, I do see the potential for that. I lowered these to, I believe, 70, sometimes 60%, and I think I ended up paying for it because I don't think going down to 60% rarity, I was able to get enough combined rarity between my character and the map in order to convert this gold up into currency in a meaningful way. That is where the strategy, I think, can be improved. So let's go into a quick crash course guide about what the strategy is, and then you can use all this information to kind of see if you want to tweak it or just run it as I ran it. But here's a crash course on exactly how you would go about this. Okay, so I took a quad tab of maps and about a third of another. I think I went like 4 or 5 lines into this roll 2 tab, and then I started going line by line with these regexes. Do not panic. This is not nearly as bad as it looks. Most of the pain of this is actually setting up the regex, which I will copy and paste down into the comments below so you can go ahead and use it yourself. Edit this in real quick. So if we look at this regex, I know it's a lot of mumbo jumbo. There's a couple things about this that I want to talk about here. You can see 6 through 9. That means that gold, I'm searching for 60% up into, I believe that's infinite, even though it says 9, but it's 60% plus, right? 70% plus, 40% plus. That's all that's saying. If you want to make your own, you go to POE.re, Path of Exile 2 regex, waystones, and then here you can just type in the values, 80% gold or whatever value you want. I don't think you can do 15 because I think it's 1 to 2, so it's basically 10 or 20%. But we'll do 80 and 40, and then you just select the 3 you want, go down, select the 3 you want, and create it however you want to create it. What I did notice when doing doubles is this was a little broken. So let's say I did 80. I think it was the rarity that was broken, but it might have been the gold as well. But let's say I wanted these two here. You have to select when all mods are found, but specifically with double prefix maps when you're looking for them, you also have to select this right here, or else it will not show the maps. That's why when we look at this regex, you can see some of these are very long. I had to go back in and fix this later because a lot of maps didn't end up showing up, and I didn't catch it until later. Up top here are my triple prefix maps. These are the ones that are ready to go. So you go in line by line and just pull them out. I think I got like 5 to 10 maps. It wasn't a lot. Once you have these maps pulled out, you anoint them with 3 paranoias, and they're done. You don't touch them anymore. You're going to put them aside. These are the maps that you're going to run once your towers are set up. Then you're going to go back in and you're going to pull out your double prefix maps. Now, again, this looks very complicated. This entire process takes like 3 to 5 minutes, and it's going to set you up for 8+ hours of farming. Like it's really not that bad, and it's very simple. The absolute worst part of this is exalting all the maps because of the limit rating. But no matter what strategy you're running, you should be exalting your maps, and you're already gonna have to do that anyway. So, it is what it is. Then, once you've picked out your triple prefix maps that are already ready to go and paranoid them, and you've picked out your double prefix maps and paranoid them, you're going to go in and you're going to val orb every one of your double prefix maps. This is going to brick them. I think I bricked like 5, somewhere between 5 to 10 of my maps, but it is also going to turn some of them into triple prefixes, which are your juicer maps that you're going to run after your tower range is set up. These maps will be used to path to your towers. These maps will be used to run the maps after your towers are set up. Again, if you're not entirely sure, just go watch this. I believe the first 15 minutes of this are me doing this process if you're not completely clear on what I'm talking about. In the end, we get this. These are all of the maps that turned into triple prefix, and these are all of the maps that remained as double prefix. These will be used as pathing maps and just extra maps if we end up running out of the triple prefix. I end up using less than these because I started to discover that like 60% gold and 60% rarity just wasn't really cutting it. I wasn't getting enough. I really think you need those 80% plus values as well as 80% quantity on your tablets and towers. However, what I think I would do is I would still pull these values out and I would val orb them, and I would take the triple prefixes that are lower values, like 60%, because basically if you get a triple prefix, you're almost guaranteed a T1 currency, if not multiple T1 currencies per map. However, on the doubles, if the values are low, I would probably get rid of them at this point, and I would just keep the higher value ones like 80% rarity, 80% gold. Anything with additional modifiers, essentially just rarity, because it increases the monster's item rarity, and it's a pretty big increase. But hopefully you get the point from that. Um, I would thin this section out a little bit more and take out some of the lower value maps after I got a bunch of triple prefix maps. Then we're just going to take the double prefix maps and we're going to start pathing to a tower. Once I get to the tower, I immediately put in the quantity and breach percent tablet. Then I go to the next tower and then I continue to use pathing maps, pathing maps, pathing maps, pathing maps, pathing maps. And then once all these towers are filled out, I then go into those strong triple prefix maps and I start to run these inner maps that are now scaled up by all of these towers. And then once all of this is finished, I will not pass the last tower that I put in. What I will do is once the section is finished, I will use the double prefix ones to go in and start pathing to the next towers. Then, in order to sustain the tablets, as said before, I take any percent breach that doesn't already have quantity on it, and I just chance null off the other modifier that isn't percent breach, and then I augment, hoping to hit a percent breach. I got somewhere around 80 tablets back or something like that. I think it's going to be pretty easy to sustain these, but you may have to go out and buy one or two at the end if you don't hit like high quantity on some of them. But that's pretty much it. You're just going to be leapfrogging the towers as you go. I think on your pathing maps, as long as if you have high gold, high rarity, quantity, a good combination of mods, you should see a divine orb probably every 3 maps, give or take. And you'll see more than that. I'm just talking about a raw divine, but maybe every 3 or 4 maps. And then once you get into your triple prefix maps and your towers are outlined, you should start seeing a T1 currency or two every single map. My personal character's item rarity is 199%, although I do not think you need that much. There are a lot of people that are saying that 150% is the soft cap. I would really try and shoot for 150%. If you were below that, your numbers are probably going to start to vary quite a bit. I imagine 100% will get you pretty close, but that extra 50% will probably make a pretty good difference. And then anything over that is basically doesn't matter from what I understand. Very, very little difference. And then lastly, since we are exalting 738 maps and only using 72 or however many you end up getting, we are going to have a ton of leftover maps, which is where we'll go in and we'll use these to sell on TFT. Now, I thought this was going to be a super tedious process, so much so that I didn't even really want to do it, but it is actually not that bad if you have the regex. I ended up making 10 divines for it. I think all in all, sorting out the maps took me like 15 minutes, making the listing maybe another 5 minutes. So it is certainly worth it to go back in and do this. I will give you the regex for what I use to sort these out in the details, as well as the regex for how to filter your maps in the details. But you can see if we go into the Forbidden Trove Discord, there is a map section where you can get the values for all of these maps. I was not able to sell them around 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time in America very well, but as soon as it hit 4 p.m. and a bunch of people started getting online, these things like evaporated. They were almost sold instantly. So it does seem kind of like the time of day potentially, but the only thing I will say about them that wouldn't just make sense if you were to look at this is the experience ones. I did end up corrupting the 215 experience ones because they weren't selling very well uncorrupted. There's also a corrupted section here, but it seemed like I got better value if I just corrupted the like 11 or 12 tier 15 experience ones I had. I might have had more, but let's see. So I had 15 total, and I corrupted them. The ones that didn't turn into tier 16s, I was able to sell 11 of them for 280. I think I sold them at like 25 a piece or something like that. And then the ones that go up to tier 16, those will sell for a divine each. Every other map I left uncorrupted. I feel like you probably get more value. If I was going to buy maps, I would want them uncorrupted so I could use instilled emotions on them, although I'm not entirely sure what all of these different maps are being used for. I imagine the experienced ones are being used for service, for leveling carries, but I don't know. People do lots of different weird shit on here. But yeah. But that's it. That's pretty much the strategy. If you have any questions about it, if I didn't explain it well enough, feel free to comment. Feel free to comment anyways. Say nice things, say mean things. If you're mean, it helps me improve. If you're nice, it makes me feel good. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. I think the next strategy I'm going to work on is something where I can try to get like I'm hoping to get like 1 to 2, maybe 3 ritual tablets per map, doing a strategy kind of similar to this. So I think I'm going to work on that next, and then I'll probably start looking into the new POE 1 league that's coming out. Um, but yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got something out of it. Hopefully if you try it, you make a bunch of money. All right, see you next time.